Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pixels to Politics. I'm Blackheart, joined by Dougie and Bray. Tonight, we're thrilled to have a special guest with us, Debbie DeCamp, the Chief Marketing Officer of Wellaby, a senior health and life insurance company. Debbie has, within the last year, successfully led a nearly century-old company through a transformative rebrand. She'll share her thoughts and insights on unifying a house of brands, the power of perseverance over perfection, and her experiences climbing the corporate ladder as a woman. Get ready for an inspiring discussion packed with invaluable lessons and insider perspective. Let's dive in. Debbie, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Braden, Dougie, how are you both doing?
It's another good day.
Heck
Yes,
yeah.
another day in paradise. And I have to say, your you reading the intros is awesome. You've gotten really good at it.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should just do it from now on. I don't think we need to worry about it. I think it's just a you thing.
You know what? I'll bear that burden, but that means you guys have to ask the questions of our guest, okay? I get to sit here and just chill for the rest of the show.
Well, Ryan, I think you are also the better question asker as well. So I think maybe you should take more of the burden for that, at least today, anyway.
Oh, okay, that's fine. All right, cool, fine, whatever. I'll
You
I'll
should
just
you
go ahead
should
and do
just do
everything then.
everything. Yeah, just do everything, please.
Oh, okay. Well, since you guys asked so nicely, Debbie, I hope you don't mind that, right?
No, no, not at all.
All right. So obviously, you're very experienced. I know this, you know this, and our audience will hopefully learn this by the end of today's session. But I think we should perhaps start with the way you rebranded a company, right? Company was a century old. It used to be what American Enterprise Insurance, correct?
American Enterprise Group, but we technically had 15 different entities with multiple different brands.
Okay, so it was a century-old brand with a lot of like mini brands underneath it.
Correct.
Okay, so that's obviously going to be a lot to unpack, but would you like to maybe give us like a little bit of like the history of American Group Insurance and kind of talk about like maybe how some of the tiny brands split and maybe a little bit of the lead up into your rebranding
Sure,
effort?
sure.
Sure.
So the company was founded in 1929 as American Republic Insurance Company. And in the time, from the time it started back in the Great Depression, so it was a young company during the Great Depression and survived that. And it was really founded on the principle of caring. And throughout the years, obviously, there was a lot of significant growth and change. They acquired other companies, which added to the different brands that they had. At one point, they renamed American Republic Insurance Company to not the at the top the mutual holding company, and we won't get into mutuality. That could be a real whole another discussion, but for another day. But they had taken the mutual holding company and renamed that to be American Enterprise Group Inc. And so they had a lot of different brands. There was Medico, there was Great Western Insurance Company, there was American Republic, there was American Enterprise Group, and lots of different brands, six insurance companies under that. And I knew it was about 7 years ago when I joined the company, and I knew coming in from the outside that there was confusion on the outside about who this company was. And then when I started and I realized there was confusion on the inside about who we were, I realized we had an even bigger problem that we needed to solve.
Okay. So basically, if I'm understanding correctly, not only was there outside confusion, but inside confusion that was kind of like the tipping point for you. Was that the same for the other members of corporate or the other decision makers in your company?
I think we all knew that we all thought we knew that it would be best to unify, but we really decided to be deliberate and go through what I'm going to call a brand discovery process. So it was a very thoughtful and deliberate process where we interviewed our board members, all of our executive leadership team, all employees throughout the company had a chance to take a survey. We worked with a brand vendor who came on site and did employee interviews, different levels and all different areas to really put together this very well thought out discovery work. Because just because we thought we maybe should unify and we could um, get some efficiencies and enhance our brand equity and awareness through that, we wanted really the data to help back that up. And so that's what that brand discovery process did. And what we found is we also interviewed agents and customers and non-customers. And what we found is none of our existing brands had any brand equity in them. And that our employees overwhelmingly said they wanted to be one company, one team. And not only did they want one brand to move us forward, but they wanted that to be a whole new name, which added a whole nother layer of complexity to the process.
I'm curious. I hate to go backwards, but so you started at the company before the rebranding. How long were you there for uh, before that was a decision made?
I started in 7 years ago, coming up on my 7-year anniversary. And like I said, I knew there was a brand problem kind of on the outside. And I thought, hey, I think I can go in there and help this company. And then realizing it was on the inside, it was like, okay. And so in 2017, I was like, we really need to look at this. And I had people saying to me, Debbie, are you going to fix our brand problem? We had employees where, with the overall company being American Enterprise Group, nobody knew who that was. There was a lot of confusion because no products were sold under that brand. It was actually when that company name came about, American Enterprise Group, that really was more of a what I'm going to call, was never intended to be a brand of the company. But as you acquired more and more companies and as you had these different brands, it became important to use that overarching company, American Enterprise Group, and talking about the company as a whole, because you couldn't talk about these other multiple different entities. And so it got to be real challenging. And that's kind of, I think, where employees started to feel like back when they were American Republic Insurance Company, they knew who they were. They had a solid brand back in the day in Des Moines, Iowa. People, in fact, today, some people, if you say American Republic Insurance Company in Des Moines, people go, oh yeah, American Republic. They do recognize that name out of any of them. But it was we brought the brand vendor in November of 2017, and then in January of 2018 we acquired another company, which kind of put the brand project on hold while we transitioned through yet adding one more name to our brands, house of brands. And then in January of 2019 we picked back up the brand discovery project and really kicked it off full force from that point. So it was really about a 4.5-year process total.
Wow. Did you do what was your experience in marketing before this job?
I had been in a lot of different industries. So I had started after I graduated college in promotional products industry. I spent quite a bit of time there, 8 years there, and then right before I left that company, I had just become the marketing manager. It was kind of funny. I'd been named an industry up and comer, only to be an industry up and leaver. It was kind of funny how that happened. But our move brought us back to the Des Moines area. And at that point, then I worked for an accounting and tax firm as their marketing manager, doing a lot of different things. That was really kind of my first foot dipping into what I'm going to call more regulated kind of marketing. And then I went to a bank, and it was even another level of heavily regulated things that you have to do from a marketing perspective. So then when I came in and joined the insurance company, it's even more heavily regulated, especially on the health side due to HIPAA and just different things like that. But it's very interesting. So like I've always loved advertising and being creative. And when you're in a heavily regulated industry, you have to be really thoughtful about some of the things you can and can't do and say, and disclaimers. And we all know how we love disclaimers, right? On all those commercials and ads.
Were you intimidated at all going into the insurance or medical insurance industry?
No, not really. Because I think, from my perspective, I think it's helpful to the fact that I had different backgrounds doing marketing at different things. And I do think it was a nice progression. If I had not done maybe any regulated marketing and had experience with that, it might have been a little bit more intimidating than it was. But it was a great team. We have a great legal and compliance team as well. And just being able to work with them and understanding what we can and can't do, and finding paths to yes, and just really wanting to be that trustworthy company. I think we all know that insurance companies maybe aren't the most trusted industry out there, but that's really what we're trying to do. And one of the things with our rebrand was really to show the caring company that we are, and that, our vision is to be the most trusted provider of health and wealth solutions in an increasingly connected world. And we had a great story to tell. The problem was we were telling it 6 different ways at our company before. And now we have just this one story to tell, a unified brand that will help us be able to build brand awareness and equity with one name rather than there was no way with the multiple brands we had without any brand equity, trying to build all those up, we wouldn't have had enough time or resources to do that. But by moving to a unified brand, we were really able to gain some efficiencies and really pick a brand that better reflected who we are and what we do. One of the things I like to say is there's a lot of meaning and intention behind the Wellaby brand. Sometimes people think brand is just a name or a logo, and it's so much more than that. It's literally every perception people have about you impacts your brand, whether they're calling into customer service or they're going to your website or they're going to your portal or they talking to an employee at the grocery store. Every single perception impacts how people think and feel about us. And that is exactly what a brand is. It's about what people think and feel about us, not just some cool name or a logo. But we kind of do have a cool name and a logo, if I'm being honest. That was one of the things that we intentionally didn't want a corporate sounding name or a corporate looking logo because we are that caring company. And in fact, those double L's in our logo allude to a heart because caring and compassion runs deep in our organization. And they represent the fact that we're connected every day. We're here to build relationships and help other people, empowering them to be well. That's our purpose. And I could talk brand all day, you guys. I'm so passionate about ensuring that you have a brand that your people understand how they're tied. Your internal people. That's where brand starts. They have to feel like they believe and belong in what you're doing and how they're making a difference in other people's lives. And you have to be able to live out that brand promise and all your brand values to help build that brand equity. And just really the amount of success we've had initially in the Des Moines community, it's been incredible. Before, as American Enterprise Group, we always used to joke, we'd get confused. There's another insurance company in the Des Moines area. Their name is American Equity. We'd get confused with them. We'd even get confused with Ameriprise or because Enterprise Rent-A-Car owns the word enterprise, you'd say, I work at American Enterprise Group. Oh, Enterprise Rent-A-Car? No, that's not at all what I said. So it's been really great for our employees to be able to say, I work at Wellaby. And people are like, oh, yeah, I've heard of Wellaby. You're that company that just rebranded, or you're the company with those that cool logo or that bright yellow. Just really everything super intentional to really differentiate ourselves and really build a name for ourselves.
Yeah,
Debbie, well, you brought up something kind of interesting while you were talking about your passion for the brand and stuff. Like, on the one hand, you have the importance of relaying who you and what you stand for to your customers in the hopes of either attracting business or ensuring that the product you're offering is what they're looking for. And then on the other hand, you have the internal kind of basically telling your people or showing your employees, what it is your company stands for, what direction they should be marching, which I think is kind of fascinating because I think I've listened to a lot of motivational speakers or just people who talk about leadership in general. And they talk about how vision and mission are such critical aspects of any organization. And it sounds like what you're doing or what you did with the rebrand has helped basically shore up a major shortcoming that the organization had and move it forward.
Yeah, I like to call it unite and excite. We were able to unite and excite our employees so that they understood what we stood for. This is who we are. This is what we're about. This is what we're all here to do together. Employees really want to know the why. Why do they show up to work every day? And for us, it's empowering people to be well prepared and well protected, and to really make a difference in people's lives. Some of the insurance we sell, it's life insurance, or if you're pre-planning a funeral, or it's a lot of times when people need insurance, it's they need to use it at a time that's not great. Something bad has happened. And so really just having that caring attitude, and we call it, kind of that Midwest / Iowa nice of great customer service, being here to help them through those tough times and just to help make their day just a little bit brighter and just to be here when they need us. Our brand promise for 95 years is to be here, always be here when our customers need us. And that's actually where the name Wellaby comes from. The phrase will always be.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. All right. That is, I think, about as concise and still impactful explanation as you're ever going to get of why Wellaby and why branding in general matters. I am curious though, how did you approach, kind of changing this brand? I know you and I have talked before, and it wasn't like everybody was on board from the get-go, and it wasn't like everybody was on board even in the middle process, right? There was some resistance. Change always has resistance. I'm kind of wondering what those challenges were, how you overcame them, and what was maybe the biggest challenge you faced along the way.
I think, first of all, when the recommendation was not just to move to a unified brand, I think there were some people who thought, okay, yeah, that might be the recommendation, but they'll say to move to one of our existing brands, like maybe American Republic Insurance Company, that maybe had the most equity out of all of them, kind of back to our roots sort of thing. But when the recommendation was to move to a whole new name, again, that added just a whole nother layer of complexity. And I think that's where some of the resistance came in, because it was like, what, a whole new name? That's going to, how are we ever going to come up with a name, and what's that going to look like? And so we went through a lot to get to a name, and I think we really started that process. We kicked off the brain discovery process in January of 2019, but it really wasn't until December of 2019 where we did this identity exercise. And it was, I think you guys will find this interesting, so it was kind of funny. So we had all of our executives and other leaders in the room answering questions with the brand vendors, like questions like, if AEG was a color, what color would it be? If it was a sound, what sound would it be? And just different questions like that. And I would have a lot of people looking at me, like including our CEO at the time, who was like, "What are we doing? What are these questions? What are they doing to answer to what our name should be?" And it was funny because I remember the brand vendor that day had told us, we're going to come up with some names, and we might have to go through several rounds before we finally get to the round of a name you like. And it's never going to be this moment. It's just not going to be that, because again, a brand is more than a name and a logo, and you have to build the meaning and intention and everything behind it. It's so much more than that. And what I'll tell you is Wellaby came up on the third round of names. And after the first two round of names, there were a couple we liked. I can't say what they are, but there were a couple we liked that we kind of looked into. But what you started to find is we wanted to be able to get our name trademarked. And that's a process with the USPTO office to do that. And as you started looking at it, even made up names to try to get something trademarked began to feel like, can we even find something that we can use that isn't already used? And so by the time we got to round three, I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to have to go back and use one of our existing names, even though I knew that wasn't the right thing, because that wasn't going to be something that would help us better tell the story, better reflected who we are and what we did, and really differentiated ourselves. But I saw the paper, and it had our name, the name on it, and I was like, Wellabe, what is Wellabe? And the brand vendor said, well, Debbie, it is actually pronounced Wellaby, and it comes from the phrase "will always be." And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, that's perfect. Like that's it. And then design came much later. But even then, through this naming process, and even the name Wellaby, and as I'm trying to share with my ELT colleagues about, trust me, like a brand is more than a name and a logo. This could really work, and trying to explain, because it's always been our promise to always be here for our customers, that name, and then that natural tagline, "Be well," that flows from that. And that's what we're here to do, help people be well prepared and well protected. And so there was a lot of helping move people along in the process. And one story I like to share is we were we'd picked the name, we'd ran it through our patent attorneys or our legal attorneys to see, hey, do we think we could get that actually trademarked? And we did. It was the first name that had come through that seemed like it would be low risk, that would be able to get it through. And so we went ahead and started working on the design aspects. And the first time the brand vendor presented what that would look like, I remember our CFO at the time was like, wow, Debbie, I get it now. Seeing it all put together, I get it. You just kept saying, trust me, and I get it now. It all has come together. And so maybe some people were on the fence before and didn't actually like the name Wellaby. Now they love it. And in fact, even when we launched Wellaby, we still had some people who just don't like change. And so they were resistant to it. But I had somebody as early as last week say to me, Debbie, I was against this brand in the beginning, but now I get it. It's brilliant. It's been brilliant work. People now remember us and recognize us, and they can make the connection where before there might have been multiple brands that products were under, like say a health product here and a life product under this other brand. Now they go to our website and they see it all together. It all makes sense. And so it has been a lot of helping people, bringing them along the way, right? Like I can't change the fact if somebody doesn't like the color yellow. I can't make them like the color yellow, but I can help explain this is why we chose the color yellow, because not many insurance companies out there have yellow. They're mostly blue and green, right? So how do you differentiate yourself? You pick a color that not everybody has. Oh, and by the way, we're a very friendly, caring organization. The color yellow brings happiness and light. And so there's a lot of meaning behind that. It stands out in a sea of other insurance companies that help stand out. Plus, it has a lot of positive meaning behind it.
I'm kind of curious. Where was COVID kind of during this transitional phase, and did that play a role in the decisions made?
It most certainly did a little bit. So obviously we were all working in the office, or most of us were, and then we went remote. I think the biggest impact COVID really had on this process was actually slowing down the approval time from the USPTO on that trademark that we had submitted. So it used to maybe take the USPTO maybe 3 months. It took over a year for the name, and then over a year for the design. So that definitely added to the process.
Would you say that the rebrand, would you say it changed a lot about the company's values? Or would you say that it's influenced how people felt about it afterwards? At least people on the
I think it's just really helped unify and help everybody understood what we stood for. We had values before, but they were more corporate sounding, just like our mission used to be securing people's financial futures. That was our mission before, but there was just there wasn't just this unity of everything making sense. And I think now that everybody understands everything about the brand, whether it's our B values, which are just a little bit more, we've explained them a little bit better about what those are, as well as our vision and our mission and our purpose. And it just really helped to rally people and get them excited. And I think probably the biggest thing, especially for the people in the Des Moines community, is they can now go say where they work, and people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of Wellaby, or I've seen Wellaby, whether that was a billboard or an event we sponsored or our social media platform, just different things where we're starting to get some. In fact, it happened a lot sooner than I really thought it would, to be honest, because it takes time to build a brand, and we've just had such a positive impact initially that I just think it's made a huge difference. We had we're all over the place in the Des Moines community, where we did good things before with American Enterprise Group as our overall holding company brand, but we were confused with everybody else. So everybody else got credit. Those other insurance companies with similar sounding names got credit for the good work we were doing, and now we can just really stand out and people know who we are. So I do think it's made a difference. We've seen some. We always have good engagement scores. We've been named a top workplace for the last couple of years, and so we've always had pretty good engagement scores. But we've seen increases in some of that, and I think it's this rallying around understanding the values and how their impact, what their role does to impact what we do every day. We have wonderful reminders as they come in the building. We have elevators, and on the elevators we have those double L's from our logo, so it's like a daily reminder to them that we're here to make connections with people. And then they walk in the elevator, and on the back of the elevator it says be well, reminding people of our purpose, that we're here to empower people to be well prepared and well protected. In our stairwells, we have each one of our values. There's 8 floors and there's 7 values, and so each one of our floors represents one of our values. So if they're in the stairwells, it's another daily reminder for that. One day I had an employee come up to me after we had launched brand, and she was like, oh my goodness, Debbie, she's like, I feel like I'm at a startup. This brand is so cool and so fresh and so new, yet it's exactly who we are, this caring company that's here to be always be here for others.
Now, I know you mentioned earlier that you said that, some people, they aren't going to like the color yellow, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about that. I think that focuses a lot on the word perfection. Do you think that perseverance is more important than perfection, or do you think people should always be striving for it?
Well, for the record, I am a recovering perfectionist. So they say the first step is you have a problem, and I throughout my life have always been a perfectionist, and I think this brand project is a tremendous example of choosing perseverance over perfection. I kind of have three guiding principles that I use to do that. Because I feel like if you're going to choose perseverance over perfection, you're going to get better results than if you try to make something perfect. Because nothing really ever is perfect, right? Things could always be better. But at one point in my career, I sort of realized, you know what? Sometimes my good enough is someone else's perfect. And so why spend all this time to do that? So kind of my three guiding principles for choosing perseverance over perfection are: one, control what you can control. Don't waste your time or energy on things you can't change. So that's a perfect example of the color yellow. I can't change how people feel about the color yellow, but I can control my own actions, what I say, what I think, and how I feel, and I can control my reaction to them not liking yellow, and so I could try to help bring them along. Of, well, I understand not everybody likes yellow, but here's why we chose the yellow, and try to give them the why to bring them along with that. So that's kind of my first principle: is control what you can control. I think research has shown that successful people, they do that. My second principle of that is silence your inner critic. And it's funny, I was at a mentoring event where I sort of talked about this perseverance over perfection, a mentoring event for women. And silencing your inner critic was the one topic that got the most conversation around it. I think so many of us struggle with that inner critic. Oh, you're not good enough. When it came to the brand project, it was like, yeah, this is never going to happen. All these people are against it, which wasn't true. There was a lot of support for the brand and a lot of people excited about it too. But just silencing that inner critic and realizing that something greater is always possible, that you can do these things. We are smart people and we can figure things out. But that third principle is surround yourself with the right people. And I couldn't do this alone. I needed other people to help me move this project forward. It couldn't just be on my shoulders. And so surrounding yourself with the right people, whether that's in your life professionally or personally, can make all the difference. People who are there to help you, lift you up, or give you a little positive nudge forward of encouragement when you need it. Just having the right people, and making sure, like especially in a work setting, that you have a diverse group of people around you. You don't want a bunch of the same thinkers and doers. You want people with diverse opinions to help you get to that better result. When you have differing opinions and you can challenge one another respectfully, and you all want the same thing, you all want to be successful. So how do you get to that right path? So for me, that's what I've learned when I try to choose perseverance over perfection, of just again, for greater results.
Would you say that you apply that principle fairly often at work? Would you say it's like benefited how you've gotten to the point where you're at right now in your career? Would you say it
Uh,
was mostly being a perfectionist to help you get there?
I would say it's definitely the perseverance over perfection, because as a perfectionist, I have found that there have been projects before I've worked on that I have spent way too much time trying to make them perfect, as opposed to just, moving them forward with good enough, and, getting the right people involved and not trying to do it all on my own. I think maybe early on in my career, I worked a lot of hours just to make something perfect, and maybe didn't, I'll just do this myself, and not delegate or ask for help. And I think that's part of when you are surrounding yourself with the right people, realizing that you do need a team around you, and that they will help you get to a better end result, by having, again, those differing opinions, and multiple hands in there. Teamwork, trust, teamwork, and transparency, I think, are key when it comes to your professional life. And so it's not about being perfect. And that's been hard for me. Something that I definitely have been able to overcome. And when I start to see those perfectionist tendencies come out, I really try to just silence that, and make sure that I'm not trying to make something perfect, but yet trying to get the best result possible.
Oh,
I think
and
that
here.
actually is. Oh,
Sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, Dougie.
No. You can go ahead.
Sure. No, I was gonna say, I found that the more I've, you know, aged, and I've, been a part of different teams and a part of different projects and picked up different hobbies and things like that. The whole not wanting to it's important to push forward and make progress at the expense of perfection, because one, I think perfection in a lot of things is a myth. And then two, when when we're in our own heads and we're being our own worst critics, it's really easy, I think, to give up and quit and be like, well, like if you're so focused on perfection and we assume that perfection is impossible, right? Because we're all flawed beings. It's like, well, I'll never get this done because it'll never be perfect. And if it's never perfect, I don't want to push forward with it, whether that's, rebranding or writing a novel or making a piece of art or doing whatever it is that you want to do. Um, and it's so easy to just get lost in that and to not make progress and to not get yourself out there. But I think for a lot of things, like you really just need to push forward, understand that there's going to be some bumps along the way. Maybe you'll get some criticism, some feedback, improvements, but you got to make progress. And I think that's a huge thing to kind of take away here is that, you know, yes, you should take pride in the quality of your work, but there is a certain point, right? I think we've all been there where like you're staring at a project for, hours on end, and like there's no more improvements to make. You've already done all your spell checkings, you've already done all your, crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and at this point you're just like rephrasing random things and they all just sound the same thing. Like you're all saying the same thing. It's just you said it 20 different ways now. And it's like that's not helpful. You're never gonna get to that point. So just get it out there, move on. And I think people would be surprised at how much, kind of like you said, I think there's a part where you said, Debbie, where it's like, your imperfection is as good as, can be as good as someone else's amazing. I think everybody's capable of that in like what they're trying to do. And they just need to really get out there, embrace the imperfection and, improve along the way, of course, but still make progress. I think that's huge.
I think the other thing with that is people sometimes are just so afraid they're going to fail, right? So they don't do anything. It freezes them and they're not able to do anything. And I think we all have to say it's okay to fail. We just have to be able to learn from that. Okay, so maybe that ad campaign didn't work out. What did we learn from it? And make the next one better. And then take that data and those learnings and just, like you said, move forward and make progress. And sometimes, people want to take these giant leaps, right? They want to, just grow exponentially. Well, if small consistent steps can help you make progress every day, and it's no different than starting a workout routine, right? You can't just go from one extreme to the other, but those small consistent steps over time can add up to real change and momentum. And so I think there's a lot of different principles that go into effect of that, but it is about not giving up. And if you've got a passion deep inside of you, I just encourage you, don't give up on that. Like, it's there for a reason. And just, try to people may try to knock you down or make you think that it's not going to work out, but you just got to, keep being willing to give it your all and not give up on it. And then make sure, again, you're surrounding yourself with the right people who can help you move that forward. Because again, I don't we're not intended to live all on our own and by ourselves. We are made to have human interaction, and I think that can make all the difference when you surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, I think both of those, just to piggyback, I think both of the things you said were super important. Um, Perseverance over perfection is not something I practice well. So I feel like I learned a little bit there. And then the other one where you were talking about surrounding yourself with people, not just with people who um, are always going to blow wind in your sail, but aren't, you could have healthy discussions with and maybe have differing opinions that you can both kind of grow from. I think both of those things uh, people should practice more. I don't think people
Yes.
are practicing those as much as they should. So, for sure, I think those are very great pieces of advice that people should practice in their lives. Um, how has being a woman in the workplace and at such a high level played a role?
Well, it's funny because I think I was prepared for my career by my small world story is I grew up in small town Iowa, and I was the only girl in my class from kindergarten until 6th grade. And it was a very and we were the only class in that small school where that was the case. I was the only girl, but I really think that helped me learn to um, get along with boys, and they were, a lot of them were my friends, and just kind of navigating that. So I always think that added a little bit of a unique perspective as I went to go, start a career. I will say that, it's hard being a woman because there are certain things. A role I was in previously, I was part of the management team. And inevitably, we would be in a meeting and it was like, oh, Debbie, you take the notes. Oh, Debbie, you order the lunch. Now, mind you, we're all part of a management team. It's not like I'm the secretary in the room, but that's how I'm getting treated. So I think there's things like that we still face. I'm really glad to say I work in a company right now that they value diverse workforce. They value females, males. It's not male dominated, but in banking in particular, that was definitely one of those industries where it was kind of that good old boys club a little bit. And I think some of that's changing. There's obviously women CEOs at banks and women climbing that ladder too, but some industries I think can be harder than others. And thankfully at the job I'm at now, I've just never I've never felt that way here. I've always felt valued, and I feel like everybody's opinions matter, and that makes a difference. But it's definitely had some challenges over the years, that's for sure.
Would you say that's been a positive experience overall so far? Like, do you think, like, over the past few years since you've rebranded, have things changed, or do you think that
Well,
you've been
I
treated?
haven't really, I haven't really had an issue at the company I'm at now. I think maybe that's one of the reasons I've left previous jobs I've been in, of just really wanting to. I think we all strive to want to be valued, right, and feel like we're making a difference. And I think sometimes we get prepared for, if we've done all we can in a certain position, that other opportunity comes along. And for me, that was it. I wasn't necessarily looking to change my last job. But it just so happened a friend of mine reached out and said, "Hey, this insurance company is looking for a strategic marketing person, and I think you'd be perfect." And it's funny because I actually, in terms of titles, I took a demotion to leave my previous job where I had been a vice president to go start at this insurance company where I started as an assistant vice president. I'm now vice president and chief marketing officer there. So, it's a company that where your hard work, does pay off. And I actually, because of the brand work, we hadn't launched the brand yet when I became the chief marketing officer. But I do think there are just certain companies in corporate America who do a better job of recognizing their employees, whether they're female or male, just overall in general, and making them feel appreciated. And I'm just really thankful that I'm at a company where I've just never had that issue. I think, again, it's a caring company from the top down, so that's been fantastic. But when I went to go make that change, for me, it was all about the culture. I wasn't going to just move from one culture that I felt was declining to another. I wanted to make sure that I was going to be moving to a culture that was supportive of the kind of environment I was looking for, a positive working environment where employees were valued and appreciated. And so I think that's an important part. I often, when I'm talking to, say, interns and giving them advice, I tell them, when you're out looking for a job, it's your job to interview that company just as much as they're interviewing you, because life's too short not to love what you do or who you're doing it for. And sometimes, sometimes I know you just got to pay the bills and you got to take whatever job comes along. But I think we spend a lot of our time at work. And so it's really important that we find the type of work and the companies we're doing it for that align with our own personal values. And there's enough companies out there that I think that's possible for everyone. At least that's my big picture thing. If it's possible for me, I think I think it's possible for anyone.
Just real quick, you said something that actually mm, made me want to chime in here real quick. So you say that like when you're interviewing, you should interview the company as much as they're interviewing you. Do you have any tips or questions that you have asked that you have found have helped you kind of find that culture, that company that you were looking for?
I like to ask, what are, expectations of this role and me in this role? What are you looking for? What kind of attributes are you looking for? I like to ask culture related questions. Tell me about the culture here. When people leave, why do they leave? Just trying to find the kinds of questions that'll maybe help you get to a glimpse into what things are like. And I think that's really important. And anybody who's interviewing, at the end, they should always ask you, do you have any questions for me? They should always give you that opportunity. And so sometimes we can get so focused on we're trying to just land a job that I think we forget to make sure it's a good fit for us too.
Yeah, I know not to necessarily plug, you know, another creator steal their thunder, but I know Dougie, you watch pirated software, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Thor.
Yeah, Bray, do you watch him as well? So
Yep.
he has one short I think I've seen where he talks about like the one question he suggests that everyone asks when they are interviewing for a job is how would you utilize me in the position that you have an opening for? And he says that psychologically what that does is it basically already gets the hirer and the interviewers thinking about you being a part of the company. So you went from just being random job applicant to elevate at least a little slightly or maybe a lot of like, hey, here's how I would specifically see you fitting in. And it's like a visual sort of like psychological thing. And he says that you'd be surprised at how often that works. So
That's
not the only example that you can do, but I think that's a cool one.
that is a good one.
I agree.
I also wanted to talk. You were talking about the culture and the culture at Wellaby and how interconnected you guys were through the process of rebranding. Is that typical? Because it doesn't sound typical to me. When I picture other companies, doing marketing things, I just assume there's like a huge disconnect, and you just have like this one person trying to figure those things out. Um,
So there was a time where we couldn't really talk about it. So like we kicked off the project in January of 2019. Everybody had input that was an employee at that time. They all had the chance to take the survey, right? And then many of them also got to partake in these focus groups and offer their feedback. Then we went a long time without a lot to share. I think it was May of that same year. At an all employee meeting, I shared with everybody here were the results from the discovery work. So we've made it through this discover process, but now we're on pause because we've got to come up with that name. Well, then it took so long for the name that it felt like a long time for people, and there wasn't a lot we could say because it wasn't like we were going out. The actual selection of the name, while the name Wellaby came from feedback from everybody in the company, and the whole brand centers around feedback from that. The name itself, it was really up to the executive leadership team to choose that. And so we really didn't get to share what that name was until we did a big reveal celebration in February of 2022. And it was really cool. We did like this movie theater theme. It was actually, we were still wearing masks. So we went to this movie theater across the street. Well, it's like a auditorium that looks kind of like a movie theater. And we're all masked up and we're talking. We ended up revealing the name in a brand video, and that was really cool. And we got a lot of momentum from that. But then due to other project priorities at the company that we had going on, we really didn't get to go launch the brand until over a year later. And so we lost a little bit of that momentum, but we launched a microsite where it was everything related to the new brand, sharing the videos that we had played at the brand reveal and providing FAQs to everybody and reiterating why we were doing this, and just we had an article that we started to have as we got closer to launch, Wellaby Wednesdays, where every week we had a new article that would just update people on where we were at. So I want to make it clear that we certainly were connected as an executive leadership team throughout this whole process, and employees definitely played a part in what we ended up launching, and then what we ended up coming up with for our brand launch. And then when it came time to actually do the work to do the launch, it required a lot of work from a lot of different areas at the company. And so people were heavily involved there. But I just didn't want to give the misperception that everybody felt like they were maybe in the know throughout the whole entire 4.5-year process, because there were times where we did have to, until we landed on the name and felt like that was going to get approved before we could share that out.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So would you say that that's typical, or is that something that you guys did that was kind of different?
I I think it depends on the company, right? Like I think I've heard of rebrand horror stories from other companies of where it was just, one team going off and making decisions and not trying to get buy-in from other areas, not trying to explain, here's why we're doing this. This is why this is important. And again, that goes back to employees need to understand what your company's doing and why. They want to know the why. That's why, Simon Sinek says start with why. And I think that's what made the difference for us. And it's not probably like that at all companies because somebody made the decision to do it and that's what they're going to do. And it wasn't about making sure they brought people along for it. But for us, because it really was about this opportunity to unify us and really unite and excite our organization because we had this great story to tell, we just weren't telling it effectively. So how do we rally everybody around? How do we move us forward and position our company for the next? We're celebrating our 95-year anniversary this year. How do we position ourselves for the next 95 years to set us up for success?
Yeah, this
Wow.
does actually bring up a question that I feel like should have been asked way earlier, but I'll ask it now. So since the rebrand has really gone full, like how has business been? Like, did you lose any business? Did you gain a lot of business? Has the culture in the office been great? Have you had other competitors like be like, oh, like that's such an awesome rebrand. How'd you do it? Like what's that been like?
It's been a variety of all those things, I would say. I think we were concerned. So, one of our largest time for sales on the health side is during a time called AEP, which is like from early October to about not quite mid December. And we had a lot of our distribution partners who were concerned that our rebrand was going to cause a disruption to the sales field and their agents selling our products that they wouldn't know who Willoughby was. And the reason they had this heightened, what I'm going to call heightened concern was because they had gone through two large insurance companies, who I won't mention, that had gone through rebrands and they saw their sales dip with both of those companies. But what I'll tell you is we had a very thoughtful, deliberate communication strategy where we were talking prior to the brand, trying to make sure we were bringing our agents and our customers along to let them know, and then thoughtful throughout, even afterwards, trying to make sure everybody knew who we were. And so I think it was all about having that strategy and very thoughtful and deliberate, making sure every single touch point we could share that message so it wasn't this shock that all of a sudden one day our name just changed, that people knew why it was coming, could understand the why of why it was coming. So thankfully I'm happy to say that we didn't see a dip in sales, and in fact we grew our sales, and that was fantastic. It has definitely had a positive impact on the culture. We had a strong culture before, but just again that uniting and exciting of all of us, and then people just being really proud to say they work at Willoughby, because now people know that they're not working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car or one of those other insurance companies with a similar sounding name. They actually know where they work. And again, I shared the example of, I had a salesperson just last week say, Debbie, this brand is brilliant. I wasn't on board at first, but now I get it. Now I see it. And I think that's what happens for a lot of us, right? It's hard for us to imagine things. We have to see it to believe it. And so while I would have loved to have had buy-in from everybody prior to the brand launch, I'm just happy that it ended up happening. And now some of my biggest brand ambassadors are people who might have been the ones most against it in the beginning, but now they see it, they get it, and it makes sense to them.
I am also
Fantastic.
curious on how um, maybe technology has played a role in terms of marketing. Was that ever something that like TikTok is obviously super popular? You guys are like, we need an ad for, like TikTok.
That's funny. So we actually don't do anything on TikTok. There's a reason for it. So because our target market right now with our product set is people 65 plus, they're not on TikTok like a lot of other people. But what we do is we look at the data to say, okay, where are they? They're on Facebook, so we're on Facebook. Our business partners. And just in the community from an employee perspective, they're on LinkedIn. So we do things on LinkedIn. We're also on Instagram and YouTube. But we do try to make sure we're where our target markets are. And we have different target markets. There's, of course, our customers, again, that 65 plus market for life and health insurance solutions. And then there's prospective employees. And so that's why I think it's really important. One of the success stories I can talk about is Now that people know who we are in the community, we have seen a tremendous increase in job applicants than what we've ever seen before. And I know of 4 different departments, including my own, where that has been the case. And we're all attributing it to brand. People now know who we are. We had somebody back when we did the brand discovery process in January 2019, an employee who was filling out the survey saying, when I applied for this job, I thought I was applying for Ameriprise, which is a totally different company. And so it's just, again, I think it's been super helpful of just differentiating ourselves and creating an identity for ourselves, and the excitement of people like, hey, I love that culture, I want to go there. But technology, back to your question, I do think it continues to evolve, and we have to continue to evolve just like our different audiences do. We have to meet them where they're at. We also have our distribution partners, and so that's a whole nother target market that we look at, and making sure we're reaching them where they want to be reached.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't imagine there's a lot of 65 plus people on TikTok. Oh,
I actually kind of moving to one of the last topics, I think. You've talked a lot about business. You've talked a lot about getting stuff done, making progress, growing as a person. I'm kind of wondering how you balance that. Like, obviously, I know you're a very busy person. Some that know you may call you a workaholic.
Really?
Yeah. Would you agree with that? With that assertion? Do you deny it or what?
So I will say I'm definitely somebody who, as a perfectionist, I think I've always just been very achievement driven. Um, I I have this high sense of wanting to achieve. Doesn't necessarily mean advance, but just achieve. I never want to let people down. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to get it done. I think that's one of the reasons I've had to choose perseverance over perfection, is so that I'm not spending time trying to make something perfect and missing out on on the moments in life that miss the most, because none of us are ever going to look back and say, boy, I wish I would have worked more hours. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Instead, we're going to say, oh boy, I wish I would have spent more time with my family or my friends, or whatever it might be. And so I've really been trying to find the balance. And I think one of a good example of something I'm doing right now to help do that. So I turned 50 in October of last year, and my husband's going to be turning 50 in July of this year. And he had said to me and we're also going to be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary in June. And so he had said to me a couple of years ago, you're going to be turning 50. I'm going to be turning 50. It'll be our 30th wedding anniversary. We should do something really special. And of course, I'm like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. But his idea ended up being, we should go do 50 dates in 50 states. And I'm like, are you nuts? Like, I have a job. You have a job. Like, how are we going to make that work? There's no way we can do that. And it was like, well, while one of us is 50, it's not like just from when you turn 50 to when I turn 50, but while one of us is 50, so we basically have 21 months to do this. And it got to a point where I said to myself, you know what? How can I not make this work? I have to make this work because life's too short. And I'm never going to look back and say, I wish I would have worked more. It's just about trying to find that balance. I think we all have to find the balance that's right for us, and making sure that the people who are important in our life know they're important, and choosing, making those choices, setting boundaries for ourselves. And my boundary might be different than somebody else's boundary, right? Like, I think sometimes it's even a generational thing, right? Of people who are older, they live to work, where people who are younger, they work to live. So I think it's just finding that right balance for you. But I also try to make sure I am finding the balance as well.
I feel like now would be a good time to ask, how did becoming a parent change your kind of work life?
So interestingly enough, I was a very young mom. So I had my firstborn child right before I turned 21. So I was 20, and I was still going to college, as a matter of fact. And that was another case where I chose perseverance over perfection, in terms of, now suddenly here I am, and I'm not wed, and I have a child, and I'm in college, and silencing that inner critic of people of, oh, well, she'll never finish college now. She'll never, do anything with her life. She'll be a college dropout and all this. And that was part of that, silencing my inner critic and surrounding myself with the right people to help get me through it. Was it challenging? to have a child while I was in college and still graduate, and same for my husband. And well, sure it was, but again, here we are getting ready to celebrate a 30-year wedding anniversary, which I'm really excited about. But I started out in my career with one child, and then ended up during my first job, got pregnant with my second child. And so I remember I kind of was in a routine with one. With one, you can kind of get in a routine. But when that second child came, man, and I had a 30-minute commute to work, it became a struggle. And I just remember going to my husband and saying, "Listen, I need your help. I need you to help get up in the morning and get these kids ready and out the door." I'm It was challenging, and so I think again, it's about not being afraid to ask for help when you need to ask for help, and just being able to again, try to set those boundaries and not miss out on the moments in life that you'll regret looking back and saying, how could I miss Ryan's baseball game and for work, or this work event, or that I had to travel to, and just again trying to make sure that you're um, trying to choose, in that case, is choosing to be present over being perfect, and just life's we only get so much time, right? And we just have to make sure we're spending that time wisely. And if I could change my son's opinion that I'm a workaholic, I would love to do that. But he did witness me, throughout his whole childhood working a lot, whether that was from home or coming home late, or those types of things. But
Also, I have two things to say real quick. One, you didn't just graduate college, but correct me if I'm wrong, even with the child, you still made the dean's list every year, correct? Every semester?
I did. I graduated cum laude, not summa cum laude. I wasn't perfect, but I did graduate cum laude.
And you were working, what, one or two jobs at the same time?
I was working full time to support my way through college and support my family. Yep, and going to school
Right.
full time.
So
Wow.
school full time, work full time, have a child, and your, if you want to call him husband, fine, but your baby daddy, right? He, was also like not with you the whole time, right? Because didn't he have to like go to the academy off in like Eastern Iowa, or he was going to like Ashford or something?
He did go to the academy for several weeks, and yes, so I was kind of a single mom with you, but thankfully your grandparents helped out, and your Aunt Teresa helped out too.
Hey, look, we're looping back around to surrounding yourself with great people. Look at that. We've come full circle. We've talked about a lot today. Uh, Bray, Dougie, do either of you have any more questions for Debbie?
Um,
If not,
no.
we could always ask her if there's anything final she wanted to say
Yeah.
before we, part ways for tonight. So it sounds like there are no questions. So, Debbie, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom, or maybe some jokes you'd like to throw back my way?
Well, Ryan, I will be calling you after this. No,
Oh no. Uh, oh,
just
I done
really
did it
teasing.
now. She also used my
No,
full name. That's how you know I really fucked up.
no,
God.
I'm just teasing. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast and share a little bit about some things we talked about. And again, it's perseverance over perfection. It's hard for those of us who want things to be perfect, but I think it's really more about having the perseverance to get through the difficult times in life. Because no matter what we do, we're going to have difficult times in life. Life isn't always going to go as expected, as I have found, and so just being willing to pivot and change, and do that by controlling what you can control, surrounding yourself with the right people, and silencing that inner critic, you'll get better results.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that at the start, when it was first pitched for you to come on, I was like, and I heard that you were a marketer. I was like, what am I supposed to ask a marketer? Like, what? I don't understand. It took me like 2 days to figure out um how to approach it, and it just kind of clicked in my brain that like your job is actually probably one of the most important jobs in the modern world, because you just like your job makes or breaks the product. Like you're the medium for the product to reach the audience, the consumer. Your job is probably the most important job. You can have a great product, but if it's not marketed well, or if it's just marketed very poorly, then it's not going to go anywhere. People have the wrong perception of it. And on the opposite end of that is you can have a really terrible product. You know, you could be the worst insurance company and just have a great marketer, and sell terrible. I mean, I feel like a lot of big companies, get away on this. They just are really good at marketing. Um,
It's funny you say that because I've actually said the comment, I can bring the horse to the trough, but if it's dirty water, they're not going to drink it. So that it is kind of just marketing 101, right? It's just getting that right message to the right people at the right time through the right channel. And it takes not just great marketing, but great products. And I really do believe that if you have happy employees, you're going to have happy customers, and the rest all falls into place.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I will say I have a lot of respect for your work ethic. I personally am incredibly lazy. I hate working. And so when I hear someone say they work 50 to 60 hours a week, I'm just like, I can do it. And then having to wake up and bring your kid to school, especially one that complains and brings you on his podcast, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would give it up. I'd be like, you're going to homeschool, buddy. I'm not dealing with you.
Well, first of all, let's just say it's about sometimes you got to find time, work smarter and not harder. And there's plenty of successful people out there. They don't have to work that many hours, and
Yeah,
that's
restroom
something.
breaks.
Yeah. But yeah, I survived. I survived.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again for coming on and sharing your insights and your personal experience. It was very insightful. I love walking away from conversations that I've learned something. I've definitely learned something. So thank you for that.
You bet. My pleasure, and happy to be here.
Awesome. Appreciate it.